Welcome to another episode of the Success Agent podcast, where we interview top leaders, broker owners, and overall just really cool people. And in today's episode, we've got Dr. Ron Stotts today, and he is a leader, thought leader. He's got lots of great transformational ideas, and he is just going to go ahead and introduce himself, and we're just going to dive right in. So, Ron, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been an executive coach for decades, but I'm also uh, co-director of the Life and Transformational Division of Nexus, which is for realtors. And so I've been diving directly into your organization or your audience's
Yes.
work life and seeing, of course, many of the similar challenges that they run into because they are leaders. They're leading themselves, leading their offices, leading their divisions, and all of the different escalations of that. And so, yeah, so it's been great. I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. And yeah, one of the biggest, I would say the biggest challenges we see in the real estate space, especially as team leaders and broker owners, is why doesn't our agents just magically just do the things that we ask them to do?
Well, I mean, a bigger picture, I'll get into that, but I mean, real estate is 80% mindset. It's mastering your nervous system. It's emotional intelligence, all of those components that a lot of agents aren't really refined in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Agreed.
that ends up really creating struggle because it's they don't see that it's really their issues that are creating those outer issues, not only with themselves and in their personal life, but with their agents and in their organization, throughout their organization. So yeah.
Yeah, and so then, we see a lot where we project it back on ourselves, right? We see ourselves as a failure because we're just like, this is easy. Like, why are they just do the thing? Like, we know what we're doing. We saw success in that. Why don't they see the success in that?
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's a great point. Let me launch from that. It's like they, the people who come to me have been very successful. They really have. But what you're suggesting is successful as they've been, they're starting to hit that, glass ceiling that we talk about. Why aren't other, as a leader, why aren't I getting these people to do what I want and expect them to do? And that really always comes back down to looking back in the mirror at yourself, looking deeper within and seeing, all right, so what am I not doing? What am I doing? What am I subconsciously being sabotaged by? And as you begin to explore those inner challenges and see how those outer challenges are just a reflection of that inner challenge that you haven't taken care of, then you all of a sudden have something to work with. And you begin that inner work, and that lo and behold, changes your outer experience. Then people around you you know how you develop more greater self-awareness. You develop more emotional intelligence. You begin to be more compassionate and empathetic and understanding of where they're coming from, how to communicate to them so that they feel more valued and want to cooperate and collaborate more fully. And all these changes, I watch it in organizations that have thousands of people or, a handful of people. And you start getting yourself more centered. You start getting a more supportive mindset that not only, like I say, it changes your personal life, but it changes that business perspective, that business life, and allows you to quite literally create increased profits and productivity. All the research shows by at least 40 or 50%, but even far beyond that.
Yeah, I've heard that said before. What is it? Change yourself, change your world. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot to that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like people think it's a thing that you have to go and like go out to go do. Like,
Yeah, right.
oh, I just got to show up more and I got to go do more things. And it's like maybe
Yeah.
if you just work within yourself and try to fix some of those things, then the way that you present yourself in the world, because we can't, jump outside of ourselves and look how we interact with the world, right? We just don't know how
Pretty
that
difficult.
works.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, the only best second solution is then, well, we got to start within. And then once we start within, then we're able to help without.
And,
So,
and the reason they don't know, I mean, we're only aware of about 5 or 10% of our thoughts. Those are called the conscious thoughts. What we're not aware of is the 90% of our subconscious thoughts, where all of our saboteurs develop and have full control. So, you get people who really, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and they have a vision, they have a direction, and they make that decision to commit to that. And, lo and behold, even weeks later, all of a sudden it's dissipated. They've been distracted. It didn't get done. Whatever their excuses, they can blame others. They can look at themselves, however they do that. And the sad thing is really the 10% was clear. They had that intention and went for it. But the 90%, which was not in, not on board because it was too scary, it was too hard, you put yourself out there too much, you led from a place of control rather than, support. There's just all of that saboteur coming out. Maybe you're trying to be a perfectionist. Maybe you're trying to control too much. Maybe, there's a dozen common ones that we refer to. And, if you're not seeing those, which are difficult for a person to see in their own, in that mirror. But, that's every person who calls me, quite literally, they all talk about these outer issues and the problems that other people are causing for them, and they've tried this and that outer solution, but they're finally so frustrated. It's like, okay, I'll reach out to somebody.
yeah, yeah, it's always
And
someone else's fault, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and so what it takes within minutes of asking them questions and helping them to look deeper is they see, oh, that's really an inner issue, that I'm dealing or haven't dealt with. It's an inner issue that if I deal with, then that's going to change the results that I see in the world, change my relationships with people, change their relationship with me. And, it's almost, if you can begin to understand that your relationship with yourself is mirrored in your relationships with others, then
Mm,
you begin to go, oh, if there's an outer issue or I'm running into this problem or that problem, the first place I want to look is within myself and see how I might be creating that. And that's what your highest level, most successful leaders are discovering. They're learning that greater self-awareness, so those subconscious thoughts become more conscious, so that they know who their saboteurs are. They know what they need to do to heal that. They become more self-aware and they become more emotionally intelligent, so that they're not only taking better care of themselves, and I see it in their families immediately, but in their organizations. You start making people feel valued and you feel connected and they feel safe and they feel like they're part of something, that's important. They all of a sudden start cooperating. They start producing more. They start giving their all because they feel like they're part of something that's big. And so you do get that result that you're looking for. But you've got to clean that up within yourself so that you're asking and coming from a place that brings out the best in others and not creates resistance or tension.
yeah, I've been doing like leadership, in the team lead space for about,
Mhm.
let's see here, 11 years now. And it's definitely true. Like you start to feel like you want to clone yourself with your team instead of like wanting to help them where they're at and help them grow from where they're at, and then yet you don't do that for yourself, you know.
That
It,
was a perfect point. I was gonna say, yeah, they 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 make the others wrong and wish they would change, but don't realize that they're making themselves wrong and not changing within themselves. It all starts within. That is,
hmm
you've got to be breathing. You've got to get in touch with what you're feeling. You've got to wake up, quite literally. You've got to wake up to who, your mindset and what's running your your thinking. The work that I do quite literally neurologically rewires the brain so that they have literally a different mindset that allows them to think much more clearly, much more successfully, and bigger access to their imagination, creativity, intuition, but also just quite literally their brain is calmer and quieter. And in that quietness, they're able to access levels of thinking, levels of consciousness that they just didn't have access to before. All of a sudden, they aren't trying to solve problems. It's quite literally things, there's an ease that comes with that level of awareness. And then so all of a sudden, that struggle that they're used to fighting with or fighting, in their life dissipates. And in that
Hmm.
dissipation, they begin to understand who they are and what they're capable of and create the life that they're truly worthy of living.
Yeah, I started just kind of looking at my business from a future perspective and
Mm.
just starting to imagine like, okay, if I were to start doing these types of things instead of always trying to like put out these little fires all the time and then
Uh-huh.
you feel like you're just not getting anywhere. Instead of being proactive, I'm reactive.
Yeah.
And then of course that also reflects into your the way that you lead others.
Mhm.
So can you kind of break down because I think people have a different view of what they think leadership is. I think a lot of people think leadership is you're standing up here, everyone's down here, and you're just, you're leading your people. You raise your hand and everyone goes to war, you know, and then they go do the thing and then they come back and they're like, tell me all your little problems, and you try to solve their problems, and then you're not solving all the problems, and then it just creates more problems. So like when you're saying leadership, what does that really mean?
Well, back in the 50s, they came up with the concept of leadership, and that was that top-down controlling vision of leadership. And that seemed to work, and it does work to a certain level of success even today. But we're in a world of diversity. We're in a world of change. Before, if you were running into a problem, you might go, well, what did we do 5 years ago? Well, you can't do that. You've got to know what you're going to do next now, and you have
Right.
to look at it and see it right now. And so, your presence is more influential than your pitch, if you will. You can't, it's not what you're saying, it's who you are and who do what you were saying, you're really, who do you need to become to find the success, to create the life that you truly want to live, and that's a whole different mindset than than we've had before. We kind of came into leadership and just, if you were, most of the people that come to me, I'd have to say they're what they saw as a child is they were very smart. And that was what they honed and developed so that they get acceptance and love and fit in. And that got them into the right schools, that got them into the right job. And that was really great. But then when they come to me is that's not enough. That's
Yeah.
all left brain stuff. What they haven't developed is that right brain, which is bigger picture, more spontaneous, more emotionally oriented. And especially in real estate. I mean, it's a people game. And so you have to, whether you're working with realtors or whether you're a realtor out working with clients, or both, it's a people game. And if you're not aware of what's going on within you at every given time, if you're in a reactive state rather than, responsive state, you're turning people away. You're not creating the trust. You're not creating the connection. You're not creating the sense that they want to play with you.
Yeah.
It really comes down to that.
Yeah.
No. And so you begin to redesign your nervous system so that it enhances your business strategy. And it might sound manipulative, but it's your mindset that determines what thoughts you have and how you react to them. And so if there's saboteurs in there, you're trained to be the perfectionist or hyper vigilant or whatever, that's not going to work. It used to, but it doesn't work anymore. You've got to become more of who and what you truly are. You have to become more self-aware, as I say. You have to become more emotionally intelligent.
Hmm.
That, of course, is really, it's so worthwhile. That transformation really takes you from, every child wants love more than anything else. And so they look outside of themselves for that love when they're born, those first few years. And that's, of course, normal. That's natural. What do I need to do to maximize the amount of love I can get so I feel safe so that
Yeah.
I can make it to adulthood? But at some point you have to start looking inside and really learning that that love that you're looking at outside of yourself is really, you've got to give it to yourself. You've got to learn to fully accept and love yourself, to discover who you're capable of being, to really have that quieter, more focused mind, to literally neurologically rewire your brain for the level of leadership, for the level of participation, for the level of participation in the world that you're looking for. So if things aren't working, look within.
Hmm.
That's where you're going to really get the real answer. Everything else is a temporary solution.
Yeah, what do they call it? The deep work? The deep work.
Well,
You
they
got to do the
do.
deep work,
One of many words for it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
deeper inner work is really, might seem scary to people, and I understand and appreciate that, but I don't think I've ever had a client who within days, if not even short time, is just completely excited about this work. It reminds me of I had a client come in recently, very successful realtor. And I was like, I really came to, it was our second call, and I really came to it thinking, I might not I might not want to work with you. It's really what I was thinking, because the level of resistance, the inability of her to really quiet and be present enough to even do the work that was needed. Okay, don't think you're ready. And turns out, she had a conversation with a gal she knows, somebody who's worked with me extensively, and boy, I'll tell you, she came into that call just gangbusters, having done everything, prepared everything, excited about everything, and really seeing, oh, that's the transformation that you're offering. That's, all the
Yeah.
things that I've always wanted. Yes, okay. And you're just going to nurture that and support me in accessing all of those things. And I mean, she, as successful as she is, she will more than double her productivity and income. She will,
It's
because
crazy.
she's coming at it from a whole different place. So even in today's, world, the realtor world that's changing so much, she's going to be flexible. She's going to be, involved, and she's going to really bring not only the best out in herself and her clients, but in those that work with her. So
Yeah,
be
that's
very
awesome.
exciting stuff. Very
So
exciting.
give me an example. So like, like how does this process work? Like, is there
Mhm.
like an assessment that you do in essentially, and you have like because Myers-Briggs, they have all these different ones. My wife tells me all this stuff because
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
got a PhD too. So,
Okay.
there's another one for like hiring. There's a hiring assessment. There's obviously the DISC assessment. There's these different ones. And
Yeah.
do you just cater um, each client to a different personality type, or is it just like just throw up on me, give me all the things, and then we'll start there. Like how does that work?
It starts with a simple call. And I call it a discovery call because
Yeah.
that's what we're discovering.
Yeah.
And we start looking at, well, what is your challenge? What's your outer challenge? What are these, what do you feel the cause is and all of that? And so you kind of go through that to acknowledge that, yeah, that's what it feels like to you. But then you start asking questions, and that allows them to see, oh, well, that kind of relates to things that are, more personal and deeper within myself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for people to recognize, oh, yeah, I have an issue that's really causing those problems. And well, when did that come into your life? Well, oftentimes, well, early childhood. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So what you've discovered is something that they've been carrying around all their life.
Hmm.
And the fun thing is that if it's coming up now, it means they're ready. They're mature enough to heal that and evolve into the next level of success and leadership and all of that. And so, for me, in that call, they begin to really see where they are, but they also see where they want to get to. But
Yeah.
there's always this gap in between. And that's what my work helps them, clear up is that gap in between so that they can really create the life and, but not only personal, but professional life that they're looking for. It's something I've heard some of my most successful clients say at some point or another, in some version or another, is they never realized how really personal and professional development goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
We're so caught into that old school of, it's all about professional and if I just do this business class, if I just focus on pushing and forcing and efforting and struggling and trying and burnout, then I'll be successful at some point. That's not it at all
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just not the road. And
Yeah, the
so,
old adage was fail forward until you get it right, right? You just keep
yeah,
failing and
yeah,
failing and
yeah,
failing. And it's
I
like,
would
well, you
agree.
probably wouldn't have had to fail as many times if you just
Yeah,
worked with some of the stuff you had going on, and then you wouldn't have to keep
right.
failing. And
Yeah,
you'd probably
because
save a lot of money too.
oh, thousands. I mean, I have one client who's had, what is it, five nine-figure businesses, national. And within a year, he had doubled the value of three of those organizations.
Wow.
And now, I mean, to be honest with you, I still work with him off and on. And I mean, I couldn't even tell you what those organizations are worth. I mean, his biggest problem now is, and it's still another opportunity for him to grow, by the way,
Right?
is everything. It's like, his analogy was I planted all these trees. And now all of a sudden the orchard's overgrown and I need to, do something so that I can manage it all. Well, what he needs to do is become better at developing other leaders so that he's not trying to trim all the trees himself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and when you
all,
get to that level, you definitely need to have somebody on staff, like yourself, to really just bring the organization together and get them all in the same leadership style and what is the heart of the company worth and what are our
yeah,
core values and all the and
exactly.
and, and people have these, it's funny because it's like, well, do you have any core values written down? I'm like, no, I know what they are. I know what they are. And I'm like, well, what are they? And then you can't say them. You
Yeah,
know
you
what
can't
you
say
you feel
that.
them, but nobody knows what they are.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
they wonder why like these big corporations have like their mission statement and their, all of
Yeah,
their,
and it's
core
nice to
values
have
written
it
down.
on the wall, but you also have to really be living it. You
You
have to
do.
be really weaving it into the society of the culture of the organization. I remember there was a big tech firm. They were based in kind of downtown San Francisco, and they were kind of looking for a meaning, something that would give more meaning so that everybody would get more involved. And they were kind of making widgets. So it's like, how exciting is that? But what they started doing was just, putting aside investing in the neighborhood and creating a different culture in that neighborhood that they're in. And all of a sudden, everybody's excited. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's more involved and proud of what they're doing, proud of the organization. And all of a sudden, they're making more money. I mean, it's like, I get that that's always the bottom line is you want to make more money. You want to be more productive and profitable. But it's the subtleness that we need to learn as to what it takes to really have the success that you're capable of. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and the thing that I find interesting too is like how do you define success? And it's funny because people are like, well, you know, well, I always hated that word when someone was like, I just want to be successful. Well, what does that mean? Like you got up this morning and you got your cup of coffee and you're breathing today? Like what does that mean for?
Yeah,
And
right.
then people are like, "Well, I don't need to make a lot of money." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You do actually." And people
Actually,
don't realize like you do need to make a lot of money because they're, the just the way the world works these days is you also have to have a buffer. Otherwise, everything that you put effort towards will fail at some point. And if you're not prepared for that, then you're going to fail a lot harder than most.
Yeah.
And so it's
Do
always
you want to
funny when
make an
I
impact in the world? Do you want to,
yeah.
make what
And
you're doing worthwhile? Then don't be afraid. Play full out and
yeah,
have a
and to
good
play
time.
full out it takes money, you
It
know.
does. It oftentimes does. The marketing and everything else, and paying people what they're worth. And yeah, it's a great game. It really is.
Yeah.
But it's always got to come down to, well, what is your highest intention? What is your greatest
Yeah.
aspiration? Well, who do I need to be to create that, to live that
Yeah.
life?
Who do I need to
And
be?
that always is going to take a very centered, self-accepting, loving, cooperative, confident, authentic human being. And
Yeah.
so you've got to understand that that's part of your success. That's part of your business development. That's a key and core part of leadership is to develop those other aspects of who and what you are so that you're truly a leader and not just somebody commanding and controlling others.
Yeah, I had a guy that I know. He does like this vision exercise
Mhm.
where he's like, all right, close your eyes and start imagining yourself, and obviously he's playing the very hypnotic music and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
he's like saying, think about yourself 3 years, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay, who is that person? And then you're supposed to start describing who this person is. And then he's like, okay, well, what? And then at the end of it all, he's like, now imagine yourself on stage. And you're
Yeah.
talking to people, thousands of people about who you're going to become. And then he's like, now I want you to figure out, now I want you to start talking about who do you need to be, or what do you need to do, or what pieces do you need to move around to become that version of yourself, 3 to 5 years from now. And it was very eye-opening on just the sheer how misguided we are in what it truly takes to become that version of ourselves. And then at the end of the day, I realized, like, number one is I'm not putting in enough effort. Number two is I don't have the right tools in place, and
Mhm.
I'm thinking too small, and I really need to start building that now in order to become that version of myself 3 to 5 years from now. Because we always are thinking, a lot of times we're thinking about, oh, what about tomorrow? And what about the next day? And then what's going on this weekend? And we're not thinking about what's going on next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years
And
from
what
now.
and what you're talking about is, everybody knows that if you're going to build a house or an office building or whatever it is, the first thing you're going to create is a foundation. And
Yeah,
that you are the foundation. It's your peace of mind. It's your ability to think outside the box. It's you having done the inner work so that you are centered and not reactive and more responsive, meaning more emotionally aware and intelligent in those ways. And I'm really, I get a lot of people these days who come in some version of, sometimes I don't feel like I'm enough, or sometimes I don't feel like I can do it. And it's like, it's not a matter that you're not enough at any given point. It's just a matter of, as you run into some situation where you feel like you're not enough or don't have what you need, that just means that it's time for you to evolve and you need to look within and access more of who you are. And that is literally what leadership, that is what life is all about. That is the art of life, is to notice, oh, I'm not creating the life that I want. That's not a bad thing. That's just an indicator that you're ready to evolve. And to evolve, you need to go within and see what's ready to be healed and access that and do the work, do the inner work on that. And as you do that, you access more of who you are. You access your capabilities, literally your intelligence. People don't, I mean, I'm basically a neurologist, and people don't understand that you literally need to be rewiring your brain to keep up with so that you can evolve
yeah.
and experience the success that you're really worthy of and capable of creating.
Yeah, instead of thinking about how I can or can't or woe is me, it's someone else's problem. And part of that rewiring is then you just go into this thought process of like, how do I see the opportunities here? What is the opportunity? What is it? What pieces do I need to move around? What chess pieces? Who do I need to meet? Where do I need to what do I need to travel to meet certain people, have conversations? Like, and it's so true. It's like, the environment that you put yourself in is also contributes a lot to that too, because it's like as much as you want to keep pushing forward, that you got these external forces pushing back on you. And sometimes, like for us, we had to do a physical move. We had to physically move from where we used to live. We'd been there for 18 years. We moved to a new location to just be around more people that are like-minded. It's very hard to swim upstream unless you're salmon. You know. And and that's sometimes what it feels like. You're swimming upstream, and then the more you think you're gonna get there, then another wave comes and pushes you back.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes that an actual physical environment change, and then and
Yeah.
to so that the downward pressure isn't as much, if you will.
I would support everyone in understanding that if you're running into some challenge in your life, if you're running into, it might be an emotional challenge, it might be a resistance in your organization, whatever the challenge is that you recognize that you're running into is really nothing but an indicator that you're ready to evolve. Nothing but an indicator. If I'm feeling anger, hurt, fear, shame, whatever, just even an emotion like that, that's
Hmm.
nothing but an indicator that there's a part of me that's ready to be healed. And if I go in, understand, and heal that, then within that, underneath that, the part that I need to take that next step, to evolve in that next level of play, comes forward every time. And so it's not a matter of becoming more, it's a matter of accessing more of who and what you truly are. I'm really of the theory that you need to breathe and let go, breathe and become. That's really, if you're trying and efforting from that logical left brain, you're sabotaging your life.
Yeah.
You're not even accessing your right brain, integrated whole brain thinking, and even what I call big mind thinking. You can't have higher level thoughts from lower level, living. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and we get so buried in up to our necks in our stuff,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes it's just hard to figure out that way to climb out, and so I think a lot of people that are listening today are probably in that same spot where they feel like I do want to evolve, I do want to have big level of thinking. I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it on my own. Chat
And,
GPT isn't giving
and
me the right
yeah.
answers,
And thank goodness I ran into people that could help me because I was a mess, my early 20s. The key is, if you're a high achieving agent who's already successful but still feels like there's another level,
Hmm.
it's not more hustle, but more depth and peace and purpose that's going to take you there. That's where the work begins, because when you grow the inner leader, the outer results follow effortlessly, quite literally. I see it time and time again, and I just without question, I know how it works and why it works, and that it works for everybody who goes through it. It's just a matter of, yeah, are you willing to go on that hero's or heroine's journey and
Hmm.
really discover who you are and what you're capable of and create that life that you're worthy of? That's the invitation.
There it is. That's good stuff. So I think on that note, we'll probably just end right here. So, Dr. Ron, I appreciate you jumping on today. So, if somebody wants to know more about that big thinking, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Probably just going to my website at ronstotts, Stotts, .com. And, you're welcome to give me a call and discovery call. It's the link is in there. It's basically ronstotts.com, a deeper look, with different hyphens and periods and things. yeah, get on a call and let's talk. I really enjoy it. It's not a sales call. It's a let's explore and have some fun.
Yeah,
So you can look deeper within yourself and see what you're running into and see if you're ready to actually handle it so you can really enjoy your life more fully.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on today.
Well,
And
thank you.
hopefully somebody will reach out and get that big thinking going.
Yeah.
And so that'll wrap up another episode of the Success Agent Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.